Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining Tom and I, Tom Rosenak and Byron Low, for Helping Managers Win. We want to help you help your managers win. And today we're going to be talking about just the all the change that is coming down the pike, so to speak. Our managers, our companies, even you as leaders, you are faced with this constant, incessant need for this ability to be adaptable, to change, to switch gears. And it's just really if there's one thing that in the next year to 5 years to 10 years that isn't going to change is the fact that we're all going to have to learn how to adapt to change. And I wanted to introduce Tom, my partner in crime here. This is Tom. I say hi, Tom.
Good to be here today.
And we are happy to kind of walk with you and partner with you on this journey of how to help managers win. Both Tom and I have been doing this kind of work for a long time, and we've been working with companies for a long time. Even I remember even having these conversations with companies back in the 90s, Tom, about change. And when we look back on the 90s, and there were a lot of changes going on, but in some ways, I feel like change is kind of like just a part of the human experience. What is it that you say about gravity?
Gravity, friction, and mortality.
And maybe we could add change to that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, Byron, because we've had in our language that the only thing that's constant is change. And all of us, or each of us, knows that change is certain. And yet COVID was the first time in my professional career that 100% of the employees were aware they were engaged with a change initiative. Usually people approach us with change when they're doing a reorg or they're changing team dynamics. So there was this is a change, like it was an event. And the acronym VUCA it comes to be. And I think the root of it is that change accelerated and the space of time compacted. And it didn't matter what level of the organization you were in, everybody needed at the same time in 2020 to look at work differently. And that's never happened in my lifetime, maybe for a day during 9/11 or something, but not for, and so remember we were talking about a new normal as though that's something that just happened.
Yeah.
So as long as human beings have been on the planet, change is a constant, but we've never experienced this continuous disruption before at all levels of an organization.
And if anything stays true to this theme of change, is this week, yesterday with the CPI, the Consumer Price Index came out, and again, it was a little higher. I mean, just a little higher than what they thought. And the stock market just tanked. I mean, there were sellers galore. The point is that I think there was some just anticipation, but now the prognosticators are fearing that maybe we won't have a soft landing. I don't want to get into that at all, because that honestly is like noise.
Yeah, please don't.
But the point I'm trying to make is that we have all of this input, and it's like we do not ever in our current situation today have this need for more information. I mean, we actually have the need for the right information, because in many ways, I think we're overwhelmed and overloaded with information, just like an overabundance. And sometimes it's hard to discern and to kind of filter out the noise from what's really important. I'm not at all saying that the CPI is not important. It is important. Or the election is not important. It is important. All those things are important. But it's just that you get, when you watch because the only time I watch the news is when I'm on a treadmill at 5 o'clock in the morning every Monday through Friday. That's when I'm watching the news. That's the only time. But when I watch it, I get this sense that there's just a tremendous amount of fear and dread about what's coming down, the path towards us. And the thing is that if we as Optimax Talent, if we're going to help your managers win, we have got to have this idea. We have to be more resilient, because your managers are crucial. You take them out of the equation and your work stops. They are like the bridge that connects the work to the ultimate, bottom line, the business results you're looking for. And these managers, they absolutely need our support. And they're begging for support. And again, this all came from research that the Predictive Index did at the middle of 2023, and they published it in September of 2023 about how middle managers are suffering. And that's why Tom and I started this at the front of the year, of how we want to kind of partner with you and have conversations about how we can help you help your managers win. Because these folks, they need resources. And it's not just they need all kinds of resources. They need resources from above, then resources from the side. They need tools, and we want to help you with that. So we believe, and again, Tom's going to talk more about this, but we really need. We believe that we as leaders need to give our middle managers, our managers, we need to give them a people strategy. What does that mean, Tom?
Well, the way we use the word strategy is, what are you counting on to win? So first of all, we need to define a win on our personal, professional life, and a win in the short term and the long term. And then we need to understand what a win looks like for the people we touch. But that graphic, if you think about those two lines, if you could highlight those lines between business strategy, yeah, that one and the one over before results. So if you go over here to results, that's the objective. And that's in some ways the easiest. We've got SMART goals. And business strategy often is treated like an event. And most business leaders can articulate the overall business strategy. Not always well. Sometimes they need help doing it, but they at least have an idea what the strategy are and the results. Now, in the messy middle, where all the money is invested in actually where you produce a result, it is often very either reactive or functional. What I mean by functional, we need a software developer. We know what that is and we know what the competencies are. But there isn't an overall people strategy. And the word that we overuse, perhaps, and I like that you use the word connect rather than align, in a sense, except for what align just says is, even if you've done your best with people strategy, people are dynamic, as is work, and it needs constant realigning. The values don't need to be redone. You don't need a new retreat to decide what we stand for. We need to compare what we're actually doing, behaving, to what we state is most important. And so this whole process is using data to understand the individuals, the team, the enterprise, and the work.
Hey, I've got a little analogy that I shared before in a previous recording that we did on our monthly thing last month. I want to share it because we don't get potholes here like you do in Chicago. Because I know Chicago is kind of famous for their potholes. And I'm living in sunny Southern California. I'm living in San
Diego.
Rub it in. So there is again, I leave in the morning. It's 4:40 in the morning, and I'm driving to the gym to go work out. And two mornings in a row, there's a pothole right as I'm turning left to go on this one road. And there's normally not a pothole, but the pothole was big enough. And again, I just have a Ford Fusion. It's not like I've got this big expensive car, but I hit the pothole as I'm slowly turning left, to get on this main road. And the pothole was big enough and significant enough. I'm just thinking, holy cow. I'm going to have to get this thing realigned. That's the first thing I thought of. So you kind of test it. If you know how to test alignment as you're driving at 4:40 in the morning, the point is that with this people strategy of what you're counting on to win. And I do like the word connecting because I'm a connector, but I also like the word aligning. We could say aligning the business strategy to the business results through people. But the connecting alignment, using the word alignment, is an ongoing, ever-going process. It is not something where once you're aligned, you're good. What do they say? If NASA or SpaceX or whoever, they're trying to get to the moon, and if if they're 1 degree off, they've missed the moon by hundreds, if not thousands of miles. 1 degree. And they say if a plane is flying from Los Angeles to New York, I mean, there's reasons for this, because an airplane just doesn't fly straight. An airplane flies through these different, they're called centers all across the United States. Starts in Los Angeles Center if they're coming from Los Angeles. Los Angeles Center is a big center. And the air traffic control will give a heading. They have to be aligned 100%. They can't deviate at all. If they're given a heading, they have to stay on that heading. And if they divert from that heading, that alignment, and there's all kinds of, standard protocol, but eventually F-16s or F-15s will be scrambled out of an Air Force base if that airplane is out of alignment with where it's supposed to be going as far as a heading. So when it comes to the people strategy, what we're counting on to win, we have to get in our mind this idea. I mean, today we're talking about change, but there's also, we need to have this, we need to accept the reality that alignment is just a part of the deal.
Good analogy.
Cool. Multiple analogies, actually. Leveraging people data. Talk to us about this.
Well, I'm going to just address the scale part, because I have the tools. We use a combination of tools, proven leadership tools, to get the data. And vision is for another topic, but the leaders on this call know what we mean by vision. But I want to talk about scale, because I've been fortunate to work with some really powerful, intuitive team leads. And they can't really articulate what they do, but they care about the people. They can have the difficult conversations when they need to. They check in and have the conversations that make people feel seen and heard. They do all of that really well. And the challenge there is, if we have 10 team leads, unless we have a good enough hiring process to hire 10 really fabulous, intuitive managers, we can't duplicate what she did. And so what we're dedicated to doing is to find a way to see what works, to adapt it to differing individuals by using behavioral assessments, but to hold the principles that she may not have even known she was executing. And a lever is just this idea that if you want to lift a lot quickly, you better have the right tool to do that. And we know the biggest challenge, there's many challenges, but the biggest challenge for managers today is things are coming at them so fast. And even if they're the most strategically minded people, they become reactive. And when they become reactive, they throw people at the problem. And that might solve the problem today, but then you have unfulfilled workers, and you have, it's not sustainable, and it's not duplicatable. So we want to scale by winning people strategies.
I love it. So really the idea that this really should give people this sense of hope that this is something that a lot of the folks I've worked with in the past, they want to get to the scale, but the ones that are the kind of the missionaries, the ones that are evangelistic about leadership development and coaching people, they kind of take it upon themselves, and they kind of do it themselves, and they kind of do it with their team, and that they might get someone else to do it with their team. But what you're saying is, Tom, is that this is something that we could eventually use and spread throughout the entire organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the idea is, in business and life, no matter how smart you are, how good you are, how talented you are, you will have upsets. We could call them people potholes. But the phrase that pays, or the question that pays, is what keeps recurring as an upset? So upsets happen, but once they recur, if you keep addressing it the same way, it's like whack-a-mole. It just keeps popping up. And I remember a woman said to me one, "Tom, we keep having the same meeting." And I said, "Stop it." we tend to repeat what we've done, and that's why we need a definition of insanity. So the idea is to not just analyze, but to step out of the situation, look at some data, and come up with a new strategy.
Love it. Love it. All right. So this idea of, I think human beings, I mean, I wrote this slide, learning to adapt. I don't think we need to learn to adapt. I don't. I think we need to, I still think we need to be a little more encouraging that there's actually something I read long ago. And this, I don't know if we've never even talked about this. So this is kind of a risk, but the idea of being anti-fragile. And there was a book I read several years ago, but the idea about the anti-fragility, that we are not as fragile as human beings as one would think, and how we can work better together is to be more resilient. And just two questions. One question is, what's your response on this idea of learning to adapt? And then also, how do you see those agreements fitting into this kind of conversation about being resilient and becoming more resilient?
That is a 3-hour answer, but I'm going to bottom line it and say this. We don't manage people, we manage agreements. High-performing teams are not smarter, better looking. Well, sometimes they're better looking, better human beings, but they have a higher level of agreement. Commitment is internal. Nobody can judge another person's level of commitment, although we do it all the time. But we can look at how they handle their agreements. So we get to a point where I know that if Byron says he's going to do something, one of two things is going to happen. He's either, maybe three, he's either going to just do it and I don't have to think about it again, or he's going to connect with me and say, I'm struggling, do it. Who else can we bring in to help? Or can we have a conversation out of it? And so it allows us to focus during the day instead of coming back all the time. And so if we can raise our level of agreement, we build trust. And one thing about the word resilient is that when we talk about resilience, sometimes resilience just means we survived, like human beings are resilient. But we're really looking at like positive psychology looks at it, which is we want to thrive. And there's some really good research on post-traumatic growth as it can be applied to the business environment. Indeed, COVID was traumatic, but what you notice with people that have serious accidents or something happens, there are people who take it all on and become better as a result of it. And there's people that implode and they go in their shells and they just said, I had a trauma. And so if we can understand what are the different mindsets, heart sets, and skill sets, we don't have to wait until we lose an arm to begin to apply them. And there's a lot of research on that now. And it can be brought to the table without, it starts big, it's this big, it's societal, but it can be brought to the individual and the team level. So an example about that is it's easy to say, well, if you have stress, you should take a walk or you should meditate or you should, all of that's good, but we have to go underneath that to say, what does self-care mean to you? And how can you, because I've gone for a walk where I was just bitching the whole time and my inner brats were screaming, it wasn't renewing. And I don't want to get too much into this, but I will say I will highlight what you said, Byron, which is adaptability is a more frequent need than it used to be.
Yeah.
And so we need really quick strategies. Just walk the halls of corporate America, which I don't get to do too much anymore, but here the number of times people are saying, well, we got to pivot. We pivot. You could use that word till you throw up, but what does it even mean? And so if we want to thrive in today's business environment, and certainly managers are always in the middle and it's going to be the same, we need to learn how to make space for what matters most. And my biggest coaching, and it goes across demographics, it goes across age, all of that stuff, is people feel like they don't even have time to think or to reflect. They go from meeting to meeting. And if that doesn't change, they're not going to be at their best. That's not Tom Rosenak said. That's physiologically true. We cannot sustain if there is no renewal. Athletes know this. They couldn't run the marathon every single day. Retool and refuel. Got to find a way to do it.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for that. The other thing I think that, along with, becoming more adaptable and flexible and agile and embracing change, is that we need to learn what our strengths are. And we used the word earlier, leveraging our strengths. We need to, first of all, but before we leverage anything, we need to have knowledge. We need to know what those strengths are and use them. I'm a big believer in the whole, the idea of strengths over weaknesses. I mean, everyone's got weaknesses, but the idea of really knowing your strengths and putting your strengths to work, not ignoring your weaknesses at all, but becoming very astute of what strengths are in yourself, what strengths are on your team, what strengths are for your spouse, your partner, your buddies. That's a part, I believe, that's a part of what it's like to be a leader, and to be responsible, to know yourself and to love yourself. Even like Tom just alluded to self-care. I think that's a part of it. It's part and parcel, because it's impossible to set really big goals if you don't know what your strengths are. And just for the sake of time, we're going to kind of move on to this, because this is one of the main ideas, this idea of this concept that really we're borrowing from Jim Collins, and Jim Collins is a giant in the business world, and as an author and as a thinker and as a business owner, in his multiple books. Good to Great was his second book. First Things First was his first book. His last book, I think, was Great by Choice. He talks about beginning with who. First, begin with who. Then you move on to what. But you think of who. You think of who is on the bus. He uses the analogy and the metaphor of the bus. Get the right people on the bus, which means that you need to know the roles you have on the bus. Obviously, the driver, that's a key role. You want to know who is on the bus, who's driving your bus, who's in the what are the seats on the bus? What do they represent? They all represent different jobs, different roles, different responsibilities, different requirements. And again, we could spend an entire Helping Managers Win just talking about this. But this is how we believe we can help you help managers win in this time of tumultuous change, and how we can work better together is by getting the right people in the right roles and the right seats on your bus. And that does mean, without a doubt, that means getting the wrong people off the bus. And the idea is that we all have we don't have an infinite, we have a limited amount of seats. We have a limited amount of resources. And we want to use and utilize the resources and to be resourceful, but we have to have the right people in the right seats. Tom?
Could you go back to the resilience visual again? And I want to put one more forward. No, you just passed it. The one, there it is. Yeah. So how to rely on your team's work style. And what comes to mind when Byron shows the who is we can't always change the who. So we change it to how can we work better as a team? And it begins with understanding the strengths, but it ends with understanding how the work that has to be done aligns to the strengths on the team. And this is where teaching a team how to work better together requires understanding the individuals, understanding, and I'm not criticizing strength finders. It's tremendous. You get a pizza and you go, oh, synergy, woo, and we start to understand each other better. After the pizza, you're left saying, now what? And very few people leverage that good information. But predictive index is designed to take the individual performance and then say, what's our team dynamics? And I guess I was on this one. I'm circled there, and so is Byron. And so innovation and agility, it has strengths, but it has caution areas. If after we had an inspiring meeting, you handed me a link to an Excel spreadsheet, well, God did not give me Excel genes. So I have to go and collaborate with somebody in process and precision. And all of these work styles are vitally important, but they can all become blind spots pretty quickly. And it took me years after I launched my own business to realize this. I kept saying, I can't afford to have this, and I can't afford to have that. So I'm up late doing QuickBooks. Well, God didn't give me QuickBook genes. Could I learn it? Yeah, I'm a lifelong learner, but it'd be better I take another leadership class than to learn how to do QuickBooks. So my point is, we all know this, but we don't often have a visual like this to help us to say, oh, this goal requires a lot more teamwork and experience on the front end, or the upper quadrant, which is idea focused and people focused. But then after we leave there, we better look at the Southern Hemisphere and translate it into actionable plans with a process that makes sense. And the visual and the data shortcuts that whole process. You're probably already doing that, or you wouldn't be where you are, but you're doing too much of it in your head. Let's get it out on a visual, and let's map out winning base. We don't get to hire a new person in this case. We got to work with these initials we see here. And we'd be delighted to demonstrate this team, no cost, no obligation, so that you can see real people data and you'll get an actionable insight, but only 100% of the time that we do it.
And that's really it. We would love to have the chance to speak with you face-to-face over Zoom. And you can go to optimax.com. You can take the PI assessment. That is no cost to you. It's going to cost your time. It's going to cost the time to take the assessment, which is about 6 minutes, and then 30 minutes to allow us to kind of walk you through your results, and we can maybe even look at your team. One other thing I want to kind of share here, and on Wednesday, April 24th at the same time at 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to be sharing on how to crafting a people strategy that wins, where we're no longer gambling and just guessing, that we're crafting a people strategy that wins. This is obviously a big part of what Tom and I with Optimax Talent, this is how we believe we can help managers win. And this is ultimately what we believe how we can work better together, is having a people strategy that works, that's clear, that's focused, and it does put the right people in the right seats. It gives all leaders and managers a tool, a visual of knowing what kind of work that they do, what kind of work style that they have, what their teammates have. It also provides them the opportunity to understand themselves, to put their strengths to work on a daily, regular basis, and all go in the same direction. So it kind of satisfies all of that. And that's what we believe at Optimax Talent. If we're going to help managers win, especially as they face these uncertain times and just a tremendous amount of constant change, that's how we believe we can help you do that. And we very much appreciate today. Any last thoughts, Tom?
I hope to have an opportunity to listen with you.
Absolutely. You guys have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you next week as we talk about something else that helps managers win. And then on the 24th, as we dive into a people strategy. You take care. Bye.